knows what QA is? Yeah. Quality assurance. All right, yeah, I'll talk about that for the students over there. Young Denzel Washington right there, you know. This is me at about 4, 5, 6. Grew up in Detroit, Michigan. That's right, D-Town. You might, oh, D-Town, yeah, my homies, you know. D-Town, the motor, all that good stuff. And west side of the city, I got into engineering because I had heard from a couple people in middle school, you know, we have career day, we'll have people come in and ask you, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the thing that me and my friends used to say was, I want to be an architect or a double E. A double E was electrical engineer. I don't even know where we got that acronym from at 11 years old. But the cool thing was we had heard somewhere that engineers made like $60,000 a year. And back in 1998, you know, that was like crazy money, I guess. So, you know, that was like, okay, whoever's making a lot of money, that's what we're going to be, that's what we're going to do. Had no actual real concept to what that meant and what that really entailed. And I think later on in high school, you know, I was good in math and science, so I just kind of layers it in and kind of figured out, like, you know, I guess this is the field I'm going to go into. But really didn't understand the power and what I was about to get into and mobile technology and all that good stuff. So I'll talk a little about that later too. Anybody know what this school is?
Go Blue.
Oh, Blue University. Oh, not Michigan State. Please don't say Michigan State. This is University of Michigan, the University of Michigan. This is my alma mater. You know, I'm no scientist. I'm no research expert, but I think studies have shown that this is one of the best schools in the galaxy. So, you know, I don't do the numbers. I'm not that good with studies. I'm not a studies guy, but you know, maybe you can look around and confirm that somewhere, maybe everywhere. No, but I graduated in 2010. This is me super excited about graduation and paying a lot of attention. I think at this time, my Twitter was popping right now. So, you know, this happened in December 2010, and in May 2010, I actually got to walk in graduation. I actually did 4.5 years, but in May 2010 was a clean 4 years, and Barack Obama spoke at our commencement. So we were super juiced and super hyped, you know, at that graduation. But then when December came, you know, it was kind of like a snooze fest, and I was like, just get me out of here. You know, want to go work, want to start making money. So, you know, as you can see, me and my homie Elisha, we're just, you know, Twitter going crazy right now. But yeah, graduated in 2010. A little bit of history about what I went through in school. As a young black male, obviously, you know, I think what you guys have known is the importance of young black and minority students and individuals going into tech careers. It's not a lot of us. And I would go into class and be the only black student in a computer science class of about 70, 80. And you can kind of scale that ratio 2-3 times more in a bigger lecture. So for me, it was extremely important to surround myself with people that looked like me and people that were hungry and people that knew that it was going to take more than just studying really, really hard to be successful in school. You know, you had to have, you know, your cheat cards for exams. I'm just joking, yeah. You know, but sometimes you could have cheat cards. That was a really legal thing. But you know, I went through a lot in college. I went to high school. I was, you know, magna cum laude, you know, 3.8 overall, you know, all the fanfare that you could have, you know, in academia, and got to school and got into a rude awakening where everybody was that and more. So the competition, especially at the University of Michigan, where the School of Engineering is, you know, top 10 ranked in the country all the time, you know, I was just in for a rude awakening, and I didn't really understand or know what I was getting into. And then, you know, sophomore year, hardest year of my life, got on academic probation. I think I failed 2 classes in the semester. You know, had like a 1.8 one semester. It was crazy. It was nuts. But I say all that to say, you know, if you would have looked at me then, you know, I would have never told you that I'd be working for, you know, some of the brightest and biggest, you know, most impactful companies out here now. So I say that to say, you know, to inspire, you know, it's never over. It's never over. Because I was at rock bottom, but I made it through the grace of God. So if anybody can name all 5 of these individuals, first and last name, I'll give you, let me see, 50 hand claps. So, anybody? No? Ashton Kutcher? That's a great guess because Ashton played Jobs movie. All right, I'll just get on with it. So the top left is Evan Spiegel. Top middle is none other than Steve Jobs. Top right is Dick Costolo. Bottom left is Bill Gates. Bottom right is Jerry Yang. These individuals, these leaders, I've had the privilege of working under in either internship capacity or full-time capacity. Most recently now, as Felicia said, I'm working at Snapchat, where Evan Spiegel, a young 24-year-old young prodigy, young genius, is leading. And you know, I've learned a lot. I actually got to meet Bill Gates at his house during the internship. It was nuts. Got to meet Steve Jobs on the elevator at Apple. That was nerve-wracking. And Jerry Yang, who was the CEO of Yahoo, Marissa Mayer, who used to be at Google, is now the acting CEO. Dick Costolo, CEO of Twitter, worked at Twitter for 1.5 years, doing software engineering and QA. And Steve Jobs at Apple for 2 years, working at in iOS engineering. So working on testing and development for all the native apps on iPhone and iPad, Mail, Messages, Safari, Notes, Calendar. Y'all familiar with those apps? So I worked on that team and learned a ton from these individuals. Anybody remember this guy? Yeah, Toy Story. Remember his name? Sid, right, yeah. So this was my idea of quality assurance. When I first was starting off, I just thought like, hey, all right, cool, you know, you just go to work, you know, and you get to break stuff all day. And while that's kind of true in theory, there's a lot more method to the madness. And this was a great segue for me because in school, I was learning how to do, you know, programming and coding and development, but I wasn't getting that as fast as the other guys could. I knew how to code, but, you know, I was competing with guys that had been, and girls that had been coding since they were like 4, 5, 6 years old. So like it was just crazy. I was like, man, I can't get this that fast. But QA and testing, I knew I had a very critical mindset on quality and user experience and how stuff looked and felt. And I knew I had a passion for being a voice of the user, of whoever I was using my product. So, you know, I figured, okay, you know, I can code this, but I can also use my coding background to approach products in a way where I can be a professional kind of critiquer. Is critiquer a word? I don't know if critiquer is a word. Is it? I don't know. Anyway, you get the idea. But I knew that going in QA and quality assurance was a viable career path. After I did my first internship at Apple, I got to intern on the GarageBand and Logic Pro team. Y'all use GarageBand? Y'all heard of GarageBand? GarageBand, okay, cool. Music software, which was great for me because I'm a musician and producer. So I was able to go in and use something that I was naturally, you know, had a great feel for and I was familiar with. And then learning how to test things from a quality perspective at the industry. This quote I got from Steve at Apple: design is not just what it looks like, design is how it works. And that really resonated with me because, you know, at Apple, their motto for product is that it just works. use the Apple product. They pride themselves on it being simple, being easy to use. You know, your grandmother can use it. You know, your toddler can understand it in, you know, 5 seconds or whatever. You know, they pride themselves on, you know, using user interface elements that are very easy and simple, and navigation is very smooth, and things are clean, and you know, there's no disparity between the functions of different symbols and all that kind of stuff. You know, and if you use an Android, you know, I'm sorry about that. I feel for you, which is maybe not the case all the time. But you know, design is not just bells and whistles, but implementation of what you're using is that important. So even down to the code level, there's design in, you know, the functions you write, the classes that you implement, not being redundant, and then not doing the same thing over and over again uselessly. Design gets down to the underpinnings of what you're using, not just, you know, the outer layer and the wrapper of the product. So I got to learn that in quality and QA and how I approached testing. So, you know, not just saying, oh, this looks pretty, but, you know, what's my experience from when I pick this up to when I put it down? You know, is it fluid? You know, do I get everything, you know, in one fell swoop, or, you know, am I constantly stopped, you know, by interruptions or confusion? And, you know, I kind of carried this with me when I did QA at the other companies as well. So y'all know what this is, right? Twitter, of course. So on the left is Twitter for iOS, on the right is Twitter for Android. So, you know, I brought this I used this slide to kind of highlight the differences, but, you know, at first, you know, can anybody kind of tell me or guess why, you know, the right Twitter for Android doesn't have tabs just like the Twitter for iOS app? I mean, they do the same thing. It's just a stream of tweets, right? Like, why not just copy the same thing over to the next platform for simplicity's sake, right? Say it again. Different software, yeah. And that's primarily what it is. Another reason why is when Android started to do a UI and kind of navigational push to what they call pure Android, which is basically a change on their whole OS to kind of give all apps on Android a native feel to the platform. It's important that, you know, when you approach your product and you're designing it for different platforms, that you not only stay consistent, you know, with the product itself, you know, and showing tweets, but you also give your app a home to wherever it's, you know, being used for. So I wouldn't design Twitter for iOS on this small screen how I would design it for, you know, a screen that would be on the floor. You know, does that make sense? You know, you want to give it a feel so that people that are using Android, you know, when they use other apps that are using the same kind of navigational model, that they don't feel like they've jumped into a whole nother world, you know, when they step in. So, you know, I use this to say, you know, design and how it works. With that last quote, is important, you know, to think about not only what you're designing, but where you're designing it for. So this isn't an official Snapchat logo, but I thought it was funny because people have kind of played with the ghost in so many different ways. I started at Snapchat in July last year. Joined the company, I was employee number 100. Now we're at about 200 people. And if you use it, like you guys said, I hope you guys, you know, really like, you know, what we've done. Speaking of design and quality, one thing that I learned when I joined is, you know, the app, you know, was you know, very clunky. You know, things weren't consistent. There were a lot of different things about the app where I was just like, man, like I just, you know, why am I not getting this? You know, it's so good, but why am I not understanding like why things are just kind of all over the place? And the thing about Snapchat, you know, in my personal opinion, that it's the inconsistencies in design have been a gift and a curse. It's been a gift because we've designed around the main use case, which is messaging and pictures and videos, and we've done that pretty well where all the other stuff kind of gets overlooked. You know, so a quote by Benedict Evans that I saw. My time is up. I'm gonna wrap this up soon. A very influential guy in technology said, you know, if you've done 1 million iterations to your, you know, app's UI, but it keeps crashing and it keeps, you know, failing on you over and over again, you kind of missed the point. So back to the case of design and how it looks like, you know, sometimes it's okay to not have the best, sexiest looking thing. But if it works well and it does what it's supposed to do very, very well, it'll pay off for you in the long run. So I had to learn that, and coming from Apple and Twitter and thinking like, man, like everything needs to be perfect. I need to get it. I need to give this to, you know, my mom, and she needs to get it. I need to give it to, you know, my baby cousin. He needs to get it. But, you know, the thing is, you know, we've kind of lasered in our focus in creating a delightful experience around the main use case, which is messaging. And once we did that, everything kind of fell into place. So yeah, that kind of went by pretty quick. My time is up, but I'll be around. I love to talk to you all and pick your brains. You can pick my brain. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. I'm a wealth of knowledge for you all. So thank you for the time.